So what we're going to talk about is why exercise is important and what difference it can make for people with Lewy body dementia. And I'll refer a bit to some of the research, but I'm not going to go into great detail about the research. But if you want to know where the research has come from, then ask afterwards, and I can always send Jackie a list of things. And then I'm going to try and give you some ideas of things that you can do and where you can find things that you can do if you need some ideas. So hopefully everybody will be ready for a bit of some activity before your lunch. So the government has actually given us some guidelines, and so has the World Health Organization, to say how much activity and exercise we should be doing. And these recommendations that I put on the screen here are for people over 65. And basically, we are supposed to be doing 2.5 hours a week of moderate exercise. And that includes things like walking, playing tennis, and other sort of things that maybe wouldn't get you out of breath activities, or doing 75 minutes, an hour and a quarter of something really more vigorous like running or cycling. Or you could do a combination of those two, so long as it made up to enough exercise. But they also recommend that you do 2 days a week of things that involve strengthening. So that might include doing some weight lifts, or it might include things like Pilates or other things where you're doing some weight bearing and core strength building up. But not everybody likes the idea of exercise. In fact, quite a lot of people are put off by just the word exercise. And it isn't just exercise that's good for you, it's physical activity. And a lot of people are quite active doing things they thoroughly enjoy, like gardening. And you can get a lot of activity digging over your allotment or your vegetable patch at home. And you can make hoovering at home quite an energetic activity. Whereas exercise is more sort of structured, specific exercise where you're perhaps trying to achieve something like making your muscles stronger or swimming 10 lengths of a swimming pool. Both can be equally enjoyable and they have different endpoints. So what I think one of the messages to take away today is that if you are not an exercise bunny, physical activity is effective as well. And it's about trying to perhaps do something you already do a bit more energetically. And there's very little research out there about the impact of exercise in Lewy body specifically, but there is a lot of evidence about Parkinson's and activity. And we can use that evidence for Lewy body because many of the symptoms are similar. And the evidence is showing that actually exercise in Parkinson's makes you fitter and makes you more likely to be independent in doing all the things you want to do every day, like people in the garden. It reduces the chance of you having a fall, and it also reduces the chance that if you do fall, that you would fracture something. And fractures are a big concern. Nobody wants to fall over and break their hip because that can be quite, it can change a lot of things after you've had a major break. So we don't want falls and we don't want fractures. And there's even evidence that if you are physically active, and this is in Parkinson's, you will live longer. So I suspect that the same is true for everybody, that if we exercise, we are going to be fitter and we are going to live longer. But as I say, the evidence isn't there specifically for Lewy body, but that's got to be good news. It also improves cognitive function. Now, there is a really important factor. So you tend to think that exercise would make your legs stronger and it might make your heart stronger because it gets you out of breath, but it actually improves your cognitive abilities, your thinking processes. So that's very important because we all want to have better brain power, especially after the last 12 months. There's also specific evidence that exercise improves walking ability and that can sometimes be a problem in Lewy body. It improves your balance. Hopefully nobody's actually going to go out and be on a tightrope outside, but that was the picture I could find that best described balance. But it actually improves your balance, reduces those falls. Exercise can specifically improve your memory. It can improve your sleep. And I think, again, our sleep patterns often go completely haywire. Sometimes we don't sleep at night, but we sleep too much in the day. Sometimes we can't get to sleep at night. Sometimes our sleep is very disturbed at night, perhaps because we have to go to the toilet a lot, or maybe it's just vivid dreams and things like that. But exercise can improve your sleep amount and your quality. It can improve your fatigue levels. And again, you might think that's a bit strange because you'd imagine that exercise would make you tired, but actually the right amount of exercise makes you less tired, particularly with fatigue. And this is, I can't quite see the picture on the right-hand side of my screen, but it's a diary. It's a 2021 diary. Exercise can actually improve your organizational skills, your ability to make decisions about what you're doing and plan your day and your week. And it can improve apathy. Now that's kind of tricky because if you've got apathy, you don't tend to feel like going to exercise. But if you can find a way around that and get exercising, it will improve your level of apathy. It can also improve your cognitive function, your ability to do all sorts of things, including crosswords and Sudokus and things. So it's not just your organizational skills, but your processing of information that people, in a conversation, things that people say to you, you will be better at taking on board what's just been said and responding. And it improves your mood as well. Actually, exercise can make you feel happier, but again, that can be hard because if you're already low in mood, you tend not to want to exercise because you're apathetic and can't be bothered. But if we can find a way around all that, what amazing differences you can see. There are some studies that have been looked at, and I just put these two up because they were where people put a whole lot of studies together. And a couple of years ago, somebody looked at 11 different studies and they found that all sorts of exercise improved cognitive function. It wasn't that you had to do one specific one to do it, all exercise did it. But if you really want to improve your memory, aerobic exercise is the best. Now, when we talk aerobics, we're talking about something that makes you a bit sweaty and a bit out of breath, and perhaps makes you feel a bit tired when you've done it. And you probably need to do it for a minimum of 10 minutes, ideally a bit more. But with the evidence, it's definitely aerobics is the thing that you want to be targeting. And in another group of studies where they looked at 9 studies, they found that all sorts of physical exercise improved cognitive function, thinking speed, how fast you can process what's said to you, your ability to maintain attention, that's pay attention to something and not drift off, and mental flexibility, being able to think about one thing and then think about another, and just have faster processing in your brain. So it sounds like exercise is definitely something we should all be thinking about. The trouble is that actually there are quite a lot of barriers to exercise for everybody. Unless you're an Olympic athlete, and in fact, probably even then there are a few barriers. A lot of us would much rather be in the hammock in the garden and having a snooze on the sofa or watching our favorite TV programs than actually addressing the fact that we might need a bit more exercise. Some of the things that put us off are being frightened of what might happen to us. Maybe we're frightened that if we're exercising and getting a bit out of puff doing something, we might fall over or hurt ourselves in another way. It might be that apathy that I was talking about before, where you just can't really be bothered. It might be that you don't feel you've got time to do any exercise. You can't see where you would fit it into your day. Or maybe it's nobody to tell you that it would be a good idea to do it. Or maybe if there is somebody to tell you that, you don't want to hear it. For everybody, these barriers are different. If somebody is feeling depressed, it's very hard to motivate them for exercise. And if you wake up in the morning already feeling tired, it can be really quite difficult to motivate yourself to go off and do some more activity or exercise. So those are common things that we come up against. And I think some of the ways to get around that are, I'm going to take you through a few of them. One is to say the word activity rather than exercise. So if you're somebody living with somebody that you're trying to encourage to exercise and they don't seem to be listening to you, try using the word activity, or try even saying, let's go out for a walk, and phrase it differently so it doesn't sound like it's a chore or somebody's been coerced into doing something that, yes, would be good for them, but we don't always want to hear what will be good for us. Sometimes it's the longer we haven't been exercising, the harder it is to get us moving. And I think it's really important to start where you are. There's no point in watching television most of the day and then deciding you're going to run a marathon, because it's probably not going to happen. It's better to think about, what could I do? What one thing could I do more than I am at the moment? So not sitting down for as long. Could you get up every hour and walk around the house or walk around the garden? Could you get up every time the adverts come on when you're watching television? Anything you can do to move more and sit less is going to be really beneficial. It would also help to have a routine. So planning when you're going to do your activity. And I have to do that because I'm not an exercise bunny. I'm a physio and I promote exercise. And I need to exercise even more than I did before because my job has changed with lockdown and I have to do a lot more sitting down at a computer, talking to people on computers and doing telephone calls, not always seeing people face to face. And health professionals really need to get more active as well. It's quite a problem emerging from that. Now, because I'm not an exercise bunny, if I was to wake up in the morning and think, oh, I should go for a run, I could very easily talk myself out of it. And I would say, oh, no, it's raining, or, oh, no, I'll go and have my breakfast first. But because I know that that's what I'll do, I have a routine where I put my clothes out the night before. I lay them out ready. And I decide the night before I'm going to go for a run in the morning. And I told my husband that this last week. I said on Monday night, I'm going for a run tomorrow morning. And he said, you don't have to. And I said, no, I do, because I've told you now. And because I've told you, I have to go. And I got up in the morning and I put the clothes on. I didn't think about it. And I went out the door and I went for a run. A short one, but I went for a run. And because I did that during lockdown as well, I even found myself doing that and opening the front door one morning to find out there was snow outside. But I'd said I was going to go for a run, so I went for a run in the snow. Bit mad. But you don't have to be running. It can be something like, I'm going to do the exercises I've been given, or I'm going to do the exercises I've found online before I have my morning coffee. Or you could say, when I've done my exercise, I'm going to have a piece of cake. Or I'm going to ring my friend and have a nice chat with them when I've done my exercise. So could you use a reward system to entice yourself to be a bit more active? Other things you could do is just thinking about it when you're out and about. So if you are going to the supermarket, instead of parking as close as you can to the doors, could you park a bit further away just to have a longer walk, if it's safe for you to walk that distance? If you find yourself out and about as lockdown eases, is it possible, depends on your mobility, but could you use stairs instead of using the escalator? That's the challenge for a lot of us who work in buildings in big hospitals where there are stairs and lifts. I'm in a very small hospital and I work downstairs anyway, so I don't have that option to use the stairs. But maybe if you have stairs at home and if you are safe on stairs, maybe you could climb the stairs once or twice during the day, as well as just to go to bed and coming down in the morning. Could you make changes in your normal routine, in the way that you do your housework or your gardening, to make it a bit more active? Could you set yourself a target of doing something for a little bit longer? And if all of that sounds not very exciting, is there a way that you could make it fun? Because frankly, if it's not fun, you probably won't do it. So could it be a game? And you can actually do some games. There are apps that you can put on your phone and you can get the family to join in. Some of them are more complicated than others, but some of them have videos that you can follow. But you could make all sorts of exercise into a game or a competition, and from a very simple thing to a more complex thing. And this quote from Martin Luther King Jr., you don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step. You don't have to see the end result of your exercise or activity increase. You just have to do something more than you are already doing. And even if that's a really small thing, it might be something as small as walking to one more lamppost, or it might be walking from one lamppost to the next very briskly. A brisk walk is a walk where you can't really have a conversation while you're walking because you need your breath to give yourself the power to walk. Could you do that from one lamppost to another? Could you get on a static bike? Could you adapt something else? Could you get a set of pedals that you can actually use in the house to do for your hands or your feet? They're quite easy to get hold of on the internet. The World Health Organization has set out some recent guidance, basically saying that any exercise is better than doing nothing. And what we have found during lockdown is that everybody is less active than they were before because nobody was going out. We were all told to stay at home and people obeyed. And because they weren't walking as much as they did, they lost the power in their legs, they lost the activity, energy that they had, and they also got a bit anxious about being out. That's a whole other thing that's been happening. But the World Health Organization's advice is try to limit the amount of time that you are sitting doing nothing, and do anything else that you can. The UK activity guidelines are to try again and do anything and everything, and it's never too late to start, and every minute counts, even if it's just 1 minute. Could you do something to make yourself a bit more active? It doesn't even have to be excessively active if that's a struggle for you. Could you put 2 tins of baked beans by the kettle, and while you're waiting for the kettle to boil, could you do some bicep curls, or could you do some arm raises for the time it takes the kettle to boil? Could you march on the spot while the kettle's boiling? Rather than sitting waiting for somebody to bring you the drink, go and stand beside them in the kitchen and do those things. There are lots of things available because all of you have joined by Zoom today. I'm presuming that you have access to the internet, and there are lots of videos available on this website, on the Parkinson's UK website, where you can choose different lengths of exercise and different, whether they're seated ones, whether they're standing, whether they're very energetic or whether they're not very energetic. There are lots of exercises available, and some of them are 10 minutes, some of them are half an hour, some of them are longer. The advantage of Zoom and other platforms like that is that you can switch your video off, so nobody can see you exercising if it's a live thing. The other advantage is that you can access stuff that's already out there that isn't live. And again, nobody sees you. You can just do it in your own home, and you don't have to put Lycra on, and you don't have to see anybody else in Lycra if you don't want to. But there are so many options available now that were not available this time last year. So there's lots of things that you could explore and see if something suits you. I would also recommend that if you don't know where to start, ask one of the health professionals you know for a referral to a local physiotherapist, because they can give you a personalized program. And there are also other exercise professionals who are not physiotherapists who have an interest in Parkinson's and Lewy body by association, who can set up personalized exercise programs as well. Basically, my sort of final comment for you is that something is better than doing nothing. So I'm hoping that you're feeling inspired. I think I haven't talked a lot about what's happened over the last 12 months because we're coming out of that period of lockdown, at least for now, and the spring has come, the weather is better. It's so much better for people's mood, and just you feel better if you're outside and you can get some fresh air and you can see green trees and things. So anything you can do is better than nothing. And so thank you for paying attention to that. I'll stop sharing and then I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.